Hello. Welcome to another episode of What She Taught Me. I've spent the past few months navigating my mom's healthcare crisis from Seattle while trying to assist my sister and my dad in New York. And somewhere in the middle of it all, I started having conversations with mostly women, some men, about how our mothers shaped us, how we show up, what we carry, and what we've had to unlearn. What She Taught Me is a series of honest conversations about that influence, good, bad, and somewhere in between. Because whether your mother was your greatest advocate, your biggest challenge, or somewhere in the middle, she left a mark. And that mark is still showing up in how you roll today. I'm Jill Consor Beck, founder of Go Long. Let's get into it. I am here with Ronna Belinky, founder of Workflows by Ronna. Ronna, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
So tell us how you got here. Give us a quick rundown.
So I've always been creating processes and systems for myself since my early days in my first career in the entertainment industry and then my work in the nonprofit sector. And so I thought, I'm going to start my own business creating processes and systems for people because I'm really good at it and I really love it and I love helping people.
Obviously, that's something I can relate to with Go Long. You come at it from different aspects, right? And I think that, trying to help people find some order to their chaos, right? That's something that gives us joy. So I love this. I love that we're having this conversation. All right, let's get into some of this. So when you think about how your mother influenced who you are today, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
Kindness, compassion, and not being judgmental.
I love that. So tell me more, especially in the work that you do, because you probably come across some pretty crazy, we'll call them processes or mindsets, and you're trying to untangle them.
I feel like there's a lot of shame, and I wonder if you experience this too in the people that you work with. There's a lot of shame around planning and organization. And so I try to be as non-judgmental as possible and compassionate. And I actually call it compassionate time management because I think that I think the opposite is not motivating. I think we're motivated by compassion and being nice to ourselves. And I feel like I learned a lot of that from actually both my parents.
I love that you said that because a lot of times when I'm talking to clients, there's a lot of shame if someone isn't a morning person and they're not like, I could get up in the morning and work out. And it's like, look, if that is not your jam, that is not your jam, right? And truthfully, it's not what I prefer to do, but it's something I have taught myself to do. But that's because there were a lot of other factors in my life. Like my husband also gets up early to work out. So it made sense to make that adjustment, right?
Yeah.
But I also think that whatever you have going on in your life, whatever crazy, and we all have crazy going on in our life, right? We need to be a little bit kinder to ourselves in terms of what does our body really want to do? And if that means working out after work or working out in the evening, then there's that. And if that's going to get you to do that and that's something you want to do, then you should do that.
I could not agree with you more.
So what did your mother, so you talked a little bit about what your mother modeled for you, right? Do you think she modeled that intentionally or unintentionally?
That's a really good question. I think it is innate to who she is. And so was it intentional? I'm not sure. I feel like I'm very intentional with my kids about that. But I don't remember it ever getting drilled into me the way I drill it into my kids.
Do you think your mother was more subtle about it? Is your mother a subtle person?
Yes, absolutely. Very subtle.
So maybe the intentionality was there, but it was so subtle that you didn't know it in the moment. But you still picked up on it now, as you said.
Yeah, I think you might be right.
Let's talk about something that you consciously repeat, like a specific practice, whether it's how you're showing up for your clients, how you're showing up for your friends, your marriage, your kids, whatever that is. Tell me more about something that you consciously repeat in your life as a result of kind of your mother's behaviors.
Great question. I think it is showing up. So I think it's showing up for my friends. I think it's showing up for my parents, for my family, for my kids, my husband. So I just think it's showing up, and I think it's remembering important dates and things like, something that I do. And I don't really think I learned it from my mom, but it is something that I practice is I always try to remember people on dates where they lost somebody important in their life. And I have experience with loss too. And so I appreciate it when someone reaches out to me. And it's just something that I do because I think it's important. And so I think it's just showing up. So whether it's physically to, all of my son's baseball games, or when my daughter was a swimmer, all her swim meets, or parents' weekend, or whatever it is, I think it's just trying to be there as much as possible. And it's not perfect because we all make mistakes, but I think I'm really intentional about it and I try my best.
Things like Mother's Day and Father's Day, people are like, Happy Mother's Day. And I'm like, wow, that could be a very loaded day for a lot of reasons for a lot of people, especially as we get older, right?
Mhm.
And, I have a friend who lost her son suddenly about 15 months ago. And wishing her happy birthday is a very different thing than just being like, hey, Ronna, happy birthday. Right. Like,
Yeah.
and obviously, I don't know all the specifics of like your life in terms of like if saying happy birthday to you is like a trigger or not. But, for this person, it's like, well, is it kind of happy birthday? Having that just awareness, I think is important. Doesn't mean you have to be the person who doesn't acknowledge positive things in that person's life or whatever that is. But I think there is also that understanding that those days, especially with the way social media works, can make that day feel awful.
Absolutely. I think it's all about sensitivity and awareness for sure.
Is there a point where you caught yourself becoming your mother, for better or worse?
That's so funny. I don't know if there was a specific point, but there was an incident. It's so funny you asked that. There was an incident a couple days ago where my mom asked me a question. She texted me a question, and it was about a situation that she writes about in this Gretchen Rubin 5-year one sentence journal that I have that I gave to her that I've
Okay.
been writing in since 2014. So I have 3 books. And so every night before I go to bed, I look back at the previous books to see what happened on that day,
Yeah.
since 2014. And she asked me about an incident that she wrote about. And she said, do you remember the date that you wrote about it? And I said, well, of course. And then I said, we're the same person. It was like really a funny situation.
That's
So
hysterical.
we both write in this book about similar things that happened to us.
Has there been anything that you've had to unlearn? I mean, obviously, you have this very affectionate relationship with your mother, which is fantastic. Was there anything you had to work hard to do differently than your mom, which is not being disrespectful to your mother, but you're
Oh,
like, you know what? I have to do things differently. My mother modeled this behavior and it was great for me, but with my kids and my relationships, I have to do things differently.
that's a really good question. I will say the one thing that we're very different about is that I'm very outspoken. So even though I am sensitive and I try not to be judgmental, I express myself very openly and unapologetically. And so that is something that I feel like I get a little bit more from my dad than my mom.
Hmm. And how do you think it served her in terms of, say, not expressing herself more? Do you think it kind of held her back in any way? Or,
I'm not sure.
yeah, okay, all right.
I'm not sure. That's a good question.
I guess let me ask you this. Did your mother, right, ever ask for help while she was going through the crazy of raising you? And I don't know if you have siblings, but raising all of you and running the family, I'm guessing, doing the traditional mom stuff. And I don't know if she worked outside the home.
Mhm. Um Yeah, so she worked part-time. She was a teacher and a preschool teacher and director. She's retired now, but, she didn't ask us for help, but I know that she asked my dad for help because I felt like he was always very involved with us and still is in our lives.
Mm.
So I think she must have asked him, um, but I don't remember her ever asking us for help.
Do you think she ever, like, asked her friends? Because I feel like in our generation and in following you, you are very open about your friendships and how much they mean to you, and I have the same feeling about my friendships. Do you feel like she relied on her friendships as much as, say, you do?
That's a good question. I'm not sure. Based on the generation, I don't know if they leaned on each other as much as I feel like I lean on my friends, but I know that she's had very deep, long friendships and very close friendships like me. And so if she did and if she does, I don't know. I don't know much about it. It's a good question.
Something to, you know,
I'll have to ask her. Yeah.
if there's something different that you have done with how you run your life, right? So you have your business and you have all these other commitments.
Mhm.
Is there something that you thought you would do differently that than your mom, and you thought, like, I'm going to try and change that and do that differently?
It's a really good question. Hmm. I'm not sure. I don't know if that's been something that I've thought about. Because I feel like, I don't know, I feel like I kind of put her on a pedestal in some ways because she is so kind and considerate. And it's almost more like I've tried to live up to that than doing things differently.
So what has that been like? All right, so that's an interesting thing. You're trying to live up to this pedestal that you've put your mother that you've put on this pedestal.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like she had so much more patience with us as kids than I have had with my kids, I will say. So, like, she didn't, um, I don't remember her ever yelling. And I feel like there have been times, obviously, that I've yelled as a mom and gotten frustrated. I just think her patience level is so much stronger than mine is. I have a lot less patience than her.
I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
So
Uh,
let's talk about that. What do you think your kids are learning in terms of, like, you're doing it differently than your mom for a variety of reasons? I mean, technology in itself makes parenting very different. If you think about when we were in college, there were no, like, cell phones, there was no texting. It was like you called home collect from a payphone or like a dorm phone or something like that. It was long distance, so it
Yeah.
cost a lot of money.
I feel like my kids are a lot more independent than I was when I was that age. I feel like they figured out more than I did, even though I feel like life is harder for them now. Does that make sense?
It does, but I also think that perhaps you and potentially your husband laid the groundwork for them to have to figure things out because of, kind of how your brain works versus how your mom's brain works.
Well, I think my husband too grew up um needing to figure out more than I had to figure out. You know what I'm saying? Like he did a lot of that work and I feel like my kids are more like that, more like him in those ways. And it's not that I feel like I was coddled or yeah, I don't know. That's a really interesting question.
You're you, right? And kind of like what you were talking about with your clients, that they're them and you're trying to help them live the life that they want to live with compassion as you're trying to teach them habit change and everything else. And I'm trying to be very careful with my wording on this.
Mhm.
But I don't necessarily feel like just because maybe you weren't as patient as your mom, that necessarily is a bad thing, because the rest of the world isn't that patient. And you have to learn how to deal with people who are impatient, right?
Absolutely. Yes.
So
Yeah, my kids are definitely learning that from me.
Final question. Is there something that's ever come out of your mouth that you swore would never come out of your mouth while you were parenting? Or
Oh,
like an exchange with your husband where you're like, I never thought I'd say that. And all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, that came out of my mouth.
oh my gosh. That is a really good question. Hmm. Oh gosh, I don't know if I can answer that. That's really hard. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to do a lot of thinking about that. I mean, I never thought I'd have kids. I never thought I'd get married. So I feel like I never had any preconceived notions about any of this, if that makes sense. So I didn't think I'd ever find someone, and kids were not on my radar. And so I feel like I didn't really have any thoughts around it. So nothing's been surprising. I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that if it wasn't something you were envisioning, you weren't like, oh, I will never say this when I'm a mother. I will never say
Yeah.
clean up for the cleaning lady because that
Right.
sounds so ridiculous as a kid. And then you find yourself doing it and you're like, how did I become this person?
I mean, I say that all the time to them. I mean, I say that all the time to them, but, yeah, I don't know. That's a really good question. You're gonna have to come back to me on that another time. I don't know. Yeah.
We're gonna wrap this up. So, Ronna, how can people find you?
So my website is workflowsbyronna.com, or you can email me at ronna@workflowsbyronna.com, or I also have Instagram. It's all workflows by Ronna.
Yeah, you're all over Instagram.
I am.
Ronna, I want to thank you for coming on the show. I've enjoyed this conversation and I look forward to having many more with you. Just to wrap things up, this is another episode of What She Taught Me by Go Long. I'm Jill Consor, Beck, founder of Go Long. These conversations are candid conversations about the relationships with our mothers, whether they were in our lives or not in our lives or somewhere in between, and the lessons that we learned from that relationship. So with that, remember, it's your life. Go the distance. Go long.